perspective for our viewers. On that note, we're shifting focus away from Europe. Hello and welcome viewers, I am Pia and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World, and here are the top headlines. US President Donald Trump lifts tariffs on beef, coffee and other agricultural products to stabilize prices and ease inflation. The move comes as his administration faces mounting pressure over rising prices. Donald Trump has stated that he would likely sue the BBC next week for as much as $5 billion after the British broadcaster admitted that it wrongly edited a video of a speech he gave, but insisted there was no legal basis for his claim. China has asked its citizens to avoid traveling to Japan as the diplomatic dispute deepens over statements made by Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi on the possibility of deploying forces backing Taiwan in the event of an attack. A deadly bomb blast in India's Jammu and Kashmir has claimed at least 9 lives and left over 32 people injured. While the J&K police has claimed that it is an accidental blast, the Lieutenant Governor has ordered a probe into the explosion. The Democratic Republic of Congo and the M23 rebel group have signed a fresh framework for peace in Qatar after multiple rounds of direct talks between the warring sides. The Rwanda-backed paramilitary group seized 2 major cities in DR Congo's east earlier this year. Dutch computer chip maker Nexperia has stated that they have not halted the shipping of the chips and have alternative supply chains in place. This comes amid the disruption caused by the dispute between the Europe-based unit and its packaging plant in China. The death toll in the landslides in Indonesia has risen to 11, with over 12 people still missing. Remember, the landslide was caused by heavy rainfall and hit 3 villages in central Java. A major incident has been declared in South Wales due to severe and widespread flooding in Monmouth. A British woman has lost her life in Albufeira in Portugal after the storm Claudia hit a campsite in the region. Well viewers, those are the headlines and our top focus. Japan is now calling on China to take appropriate steps after Beijing warned its citizens against traveling to Japan. The warning came after Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi stated that a Chinese attack on Taiwan could threaten Japan's own security. These comments sparked a sharp reaction from Beijing. Tokyo's top government spokesperson Minoru Kihara has stated that Japan has raised the issue with China and urged it to act responsibly. In the meantime, several Chinese airlines have started offering free ticket changes and refunds for trips to Japan. These tensions come as China has announced new live fire drills in the Yellow Sea next week, moves that Taiwan says highlight Beijing's growing political and military pressure in the region. With us on the broadcast is Mr. John Rosamondo, President of Viking Research Associates and a geopolitical analyst, joining us from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much for taking our time speaking to us on NewsX World. Of course, we've seen tensions escalate between Tokyo and Beijing very sharply ever since comments were made by Sanae Takaichi in the Japanese National Diet. That's not all. We've also seen some rather incendiary and, as some people point out, wild threats being made against Takaichi by the Consul General of Osaka, the Chinese Consul General of Osaka. China has, of course, tried to distance itself from these comments and stated that these are personal assessments, but nonetheless, it was a Chinese representative who made these remarks. Does it really augur well for Beijing, considering these tensions continue to simmer?
No, it's just more of the same from the Chinese. They always resort to intimidation to try to get countries that surround them to change their policies. The Japanese are taking a proactive stance, saying that it will stand with the Taiwanese in the event of a Chinese invasion. And Beijing is just using economic intimidation.
Indeed, but it's not just economic muscle flexing, it's also military muscle flexing, because we've seen the frequency in which China is conducting its drills in the South China Sea. It's incursing into Taiwanese airspace and waters. It's crossing the median line, whether it's several of its aircrafts or its PLA Navy vessels. There are in fact some live fire drills being slated to be held next week at the Yellow Sea as well. What do you make of the frequency at which these are taking place? These indicative, as some analysts are pointing out, that China is likely to invade Taiwan. Will this happen in the near future?
Well, the intelligence estimates by former U.S. head of Asia-Pacific Command, Admiral Paparo, was that it would take place by 2027. The increase in these exercises are just simply a way that the Chinese will be able to mask an actual invasion. Lots of invasions in history have been masked as exercises, and the Chinese are trying to make sure that the U.S. and its allies are off balance.
Indeed, and we're seeing this back and forth continuing to escalate between China and Japan. Because when we'd seen the meeting between Takeichi and Xi Jinping earlier, Takeichi was very open. She'd stressed upon transparency. She'd raised the issue of Taiwan, and before the Chinese side could even come out and put out a statement, she'd already spoken to the media, highlighting that this is something that she'd raised. She'd urged for a constructive dialogue on this. So she's been transparent since day one. She's been a China hawk since day one. So the Chinese are well aware of her position. Do you then think that with these statements coming out of Beijing, this is in a way an attempt by the Chinese to take control of the narrative?
Absolutely. The Chinese do not want Japan to counter China in any meaningful way. I mean, the Japanese have been kind of a little bit late to the party in terms of ramping up their rearmament. But the Chinese are eager to push pressure on Tokyo to back down and to not stand with Taiwan.
Indeed, sir, requesting you to stay on with us as we're tracking some further updates. With that, viewers, we're shifting focus away from what's taking place in the Indo-Pacific to what's happening in Africa, particularly as far as DR Congo is concerned. We're now learning that the Democratic Republic of Congo and the M23 rebel group have signed a framework agreement in Doha aiming to end months of fighting in eastern Congo. The signing ceremony included representatives from both sides as well as international observers. M23, reportedly backed by neighboring Rwanda, seized Goma, eastern Congo's largest city, in January this year, and expanded control across North Kivu and South Kivu provinces too. The conflict so far has killed thousands and displaced hundreds of thousands this year itself, raising concerns about a potential full-scale regional war. U.S. President Donald Trump's senior advisor, Masad Boulos, has emphasized that the peace process will take time and has urged patience for the mechanisms outlined in the agreement to take place. Listen in.
Yes, people were expecting to see probably some immediate results on the ground, but this is a process. This is, and I've said this several times, this is not a light switch that you just switch on and off. This is a peace process, and there are many, many angles to it. So this will take time, hopefully not too long, but we have to allow time, we have to give the chance for the parties to work through this mechanism.
With us on the broadcast is Mr. Ayanuga Olugbenga Paul, Public Affairs Analyst, joining us from Lagos in Nigeria. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us. DR Congo, particularly the Kivu region, has been embroiled in a conflict for quite a while now, especially with the M23 group and the tacit backing from Rwanda. How significant in this context is this particular agreement that has now been inked in Doha? Could we finally see the cessation of hostilities, or at least the path being paved towards that, because there were interim agreements signed earlier in July as well?
It's a very significant move that a lot of us have been calling for, that we have been praying for to see peace return to Congo, and so that the people who are currently trapped in the fighting in Kivu region, in Goma, in Bukavu, can heave a sigh of relief. But like you have said, this is not the first agreement that has been signed. They had an agreement in April, another in July, all of which have been, disobeyed. That both parties have been accused of violating the terms of the agreement. And as you can hear Mr. Bulu saying, yes, truly, this is not like a light switch that you will switch off and on. It is something that takes time. Out of the 8-point agenda that were highlighted in the agreement process, they are yet to work out the modalities to sort six out of the eight. And even the two which deal borders on prisoner exchange and also the ceasefire monitoring on ground, they are still trying to work it out. But I hope that if the government shows a level of sincerity that will give the M23 rebel kind of confidence that the government is sincere this time around to see the agreement work out, I think we will be able to make headways this time around. Don't forget that the government initially declined to sign any agreement or to even have a talk with the M23 rebel, tagging them as a terrorist organization. So if the government now is willing and interested in truly having a peace, and the M23 rebel also are given assurances, and they on their own part also have shown commitment, I think we will have something that will last more than before. But apart from this agreement, I think in many of the countries in Africa where we are currently having all this conflict along ethnic, religious, and other lines in regions, we should find a way to have solutions where only people who want to stay together will stay together as a country. Don't forget that many of the countries we have in Africa today are a creation of colonialists who forced strange bedfellows together in many places. So if these people are now saying we want out, I mean, there are many countries in Europe where only a very tiny fragment of people will come together and say we are the ones that want to stay together, and they will be allowed to stay together. Countries like Monaco, for example, is just at 4,000 people or less than 100,000 people. And there are many countries like that in Europe who are independent countries, but if you look at their population, you see that they are very small compared to many of these African countries that are forced together because of the certain mineral resources that certain external forces are gaining from them. So on the long run, after getting this interim peace, I think we should look more, not just in Congo, but in every of the hotspots in Africa, from Mali to Sudan to even in
Absolutely.
Nigeria, where I come from. Let people who want to stay together be the only one who stay together, not that you will force certain people to stay together in the name of maintenance.
Absolutely. A quick follow-up regarding what's taking place in DR Congo. We do know that the Kivu region, both North Kivu and South Kivu, are very mineral rich. Could that have been one of the reasons why this particular conflict has been so long drawn out?
That has always been the reason. It's not just one of the reasons. It is the main reason why we have conflict. You will observe that hardly will you see any country without serious mineral resources being engaged in long drawn out wars. It is only countries that are rich in mineral resources that external non-state actors benefit. When there is peace in the land, the government can decide I want to sell my mineral for say $10, for example. But when there is war, the external actors can easily buy those same minerals for $2 in exchange for maybe guns and other fighting equipment. But you hardly see that happen in countries where there is less mineral or no mineral resources to fight over at all. So I believe that it is the richness in mineral resources that seems to be a curse rather than a blessing to many of these regions in conflict.
All right, so with that, I'd like to thank you for taking out time, of course, putting all of that into context and perspective for our viewers. On that note, we're shifting focus to further developments coming in. The International Olympic Committee President Christy Coventry recently met Chinese President Xi Jinping in China's Guangzhou city. She was accompanied by IOC Honorary President Thomas Bach. The meeting took place on the 9th of November during the opening ceremony of China's 15th National Games. Now, the IOC President has described the discussion with Xi Jinping as a heartfelt exchange, calling him a world leader who is very passionate about sports. Listen in.
Incredible meeting. I felt very honored to sit with him and to talk with him, and to again hear the level of importance that he places on sport. You know, I shared with him there's not very many leaders that place that kind of importance on sport, and we very much agreed that when it comes to sport should remain neutral. And that's something that I believe we all love about sport, is watching athletes come together, and athletes don't see differences because we see the fact that we've all had to walk a certain path to get onto the same playing field. So there's an automatic respect there.
Additionally, the IOC President has praised China's innovative approach to sports infrastructure and technology integration, emphasizing further on how the world can leverage China's experience to strengthening their sporting initiatives. She stated that she is optimistic about future partnerships and collaborations with China in the area of sports development. Still with us on the broadcast is Mr. John Rosamundo, President of Viking Research Associates and geopolitical analyst. Interesting development, because we remember the last time Beijing hosted the Olympics, it was in 2008. That was quite a turning point in its soft power projection. We still remember the rows and rows of young people who would showcase their cultural performances in synchronicity at that point. What do you make of this particular meeting now at this juncture? What motivations might the International Olympic Committee have for strengthening its partnership with China?
Let's put it this way. China has become the dominant player in a lot of international organizations, and the IOC is no different. I think that it shows that China has a stronger role in these organizations, and just like the World Health Organization, pro-China, IOC, pro-China, and I think this is just simply a routine.
All right, even if it is a routine, she's mentioned that sports does not really see any sort of conflict. But we do know that China's human rights record is not something that is quite positive. There are a lot of criticisms that are being mounted, especially against the treatment of Uyghurs in the Xinjiang province, how the Tibetans are treated as well, their crackdown. In light of all of this, why do you think this sort of discourse, even internationally, does not really figure into such discussions? Why is there always a hesitance to call out the Chinese government for this?
Well, the Chinese government has a lot of money invested. The Chinese government has a lot of money invested in these international sports, and a lot of political heft. So people don't want to criticize where they're getting their money from, and from getting their political influence.
Indeed, sir. With that, I'd like to thank you for taking out time, of course, explaining your analysis to our viewers. On that note, we're tracking some further updates, this time from the United States of America. In the US, a new report now suggests that officials have recently discussed possible changes to the leadership structure of the Food and Drug Administration. According to sources, senior members of the administration considered reducing the responsibilities of FDA Commissioner Marty McCurry after concerns were raised about internal management issues. One proposal involved bringing in another official to handle day-to-day operations, but that idea has now been put on hold, giving the current leadership more time to stabilize the agency. This comes as the FDA appoints a new head to oversee major drug regulation divisions following a recent resignation. In more news coming in from China, we're learning that China has begun preparations to send a Shenzhou spacecraft to its permanently inhabited space station ahead of schedule. As per reports, Shenzhou-22 is being sent without anyone on board to the Tiangong space station 6 months ahead of its planned launch. This is in order to put China's manned space program back on track. The Shenzhou missions have run like clockwork since 2021 until 10 days ago, when Shenzhou-20 was damaged while being docked at Tiangong, forcing its 3-person crew to stay an extra 9 days along with another trio of astronauts. Shenzhou-22 is being sent ahead of schedule to plug this security risk and allow the Shenzhou-21 crew to return to Earth around April 2026, once they complete their half-year shift. On that note, viewers, it's a wrap on this bulletin. We will continue to track these updates very, very closely. We're dipping into a quick short break.